My name is Eleanor Brooks, and at 90 years old, I became a freshman. On a warm September morning in Boston, I stood in front of the historic red brick buildings of Harvard University, holding my acceptance letter with trembling hands while students young enough to be my great-grandchildren rushed past me with backpacks and coffee cups. I was born in 1933 in a small neighborhood outside Chicago, where dreams were often shaped by necessity rather than desire. As a child, I loved books more than anything. I would sit by the window for hours reading novels, newspapers, and anything else I could find. My teacher once told me I was meant for higher education, and for a brief moment in my youth, it seemed possible. I was accepted into a local college after high school, but when my father became seriously ill, I stayed home to help my family. Soon after, I met the love of my life, married, and moved to Boston, where we raised 3 children and built a life filled with responsibility, sacrifice, and love. Years passed in a blur of school lunches, bills, and bedtime stories, and my college dream slowly folded itself into the background of my life. After 62 beautiful years of marriage, my husband passed away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than anything I had ever carried. One afternoon, while sorting through old boxes in the attic, I found an essay I had written at 17 about how education changes the world, and reading those words awakened something inside me that had never truly disappeared. At 90 years old, I made a decision that stunned my family. I applied to college. When the acceptance letter from Harvard University arrived, I felt like that 17-year-old girl again, only this time I refused to let fear or time stand in my way. My first day on campus was overwhelming. Technology confused me, students stared at me, and even a professor politely asked if I was in the right classroom. But once the lectures began, I realized I carried something unique. I had lived through the history they were studying. When I spoke about events like the civil rights movement and the moon landing, the room grew quiet, not out of doubt, but respect. Slowly, friendships formed. Young students helped me with online assignments, and I shared stories that textbooks could never fully capture. A photo of me walking across campus with my backpack eventually went viral, and I was invited to speak on Good Morning America, where I was asked why I chose to begin again at 90. My answer was simple: because now is all I have. The journey was not easy, my hands ached, my eyes grew tired, and there were nights I questioned whether I could continue. But every time doubt appeared, I remembered the young girl in Chicago who once believed in the power of learning. For years later, at 94, I walked across the graduation stage while my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren cheered with tears in their eyes. The real shock was not that I entered college at 90, it was that for 70 years I believed my dream had expired when in truth it had only been waiting. After graduation, I began speaking at senior centers and community events, encouraging others to chase the goals they had postponed. I learned that courage does not belong to the young, it belongs to the willing. My story is not about age, it is about permission. Permission to begin again. Permission to believe that as long as you are breathing, you are still becoming. And if a 90-year-old widow from Chicago can walk into one of the world's most respected universities and start over, then perhaps the only thing truly standing between you and your dream is the belief that it's too late, because it never is.